It's spinning. Hi, friends. This is Louis Fawcett. I serve as the president of the National Association of Nonprofit Organizations and Executives. It's so good to be here with you today. I'm so appreciative of you taking some time to log in. Please know that NANOE stands with you through all of these trials and tribulations we are experiencing together. We are providing resources for you in the midst of this crisis, and that is one of the reasons we wanted to do Facebook Live with you today. So we're going to talk about two main categories today, and then we'll take as many of your questions as possible. So feel free to submit your questions in the comment area, and we'll get to as many as we can today. We are going to talk about how nonprofits can pivot in the midst of a crisis and use this time to come out on the other side of COVID-19 ahead of everyone else. And we're also going to talk about the CARES Act funding for nonprofits. So I have 10 points that I'd like to review with you this morning about things that you can be doing at your nonprofit during this time of crisis. And the first one, very simply, is to stay positive. I believe firmly that waking up every morning and figuring out how to start the day on a positive note makes a huge difference as you go through the day and you interact with your colleagues and with your donors. You need to stay positive for the other folks in your organization, for your family, and you need to, most of all, stay positive for your donors. You will encounter through the day, whether it's on social media or the television or with people with whom you interact, some negativity, some concern. And I think through this, it's so important that you maintain a positive attitude. I think about so many of the things that have brought joy to our lives are no longer available to us. Restaurants and church and things that we know and love and we're so used to doing. But there are so many things that are still available to us that bring us joy and help us to have a positive attitude. I just thought I would share with you a few of my positive attitude things that help me every day. Chocolate is wonderful. I definitely encourage you in limited amounts to enjoy chocolate or your favorite sweets. Coffee, also in moderation. You don't want to be over caffeinated, but it helps me start my day. It helps me to stay positive. My wonderful, amazing children, looking at their smiling faces through this helps me to stay positive. In the evening, just one glass of wine is something to look forward to every day. And then, of course, I think music and prayer is very helpful to us during this time. And so I encourage you to look for things that can help you to stay positive. Number two, I would avoid fixating on the television and the newsfeed. I know we want to be up to date on what is happening, maybe check in once or twice, but it's easy during times of crisis to fixate and wonder when the next good or bad news item is coming. And so I would encourage you to certainly stay abreast of what is happening in our world, but not to fixate on the news feed. Number three, stay in touch with your donors. It's vitally important that you not pull back during a time of crisis, that you continue to call and send personal notes to your donors to thank them and let them know just how much you appreciate their generosity and their involvement with your organization. It is tempting during times of crisis to think, oh, they don't want to hear from me. They're too busy. They don't want to know what's going on with us. And it's exactly the opposite. It's important that you stay in touch with your donors with phone calls and personal notes, personal handwritten notes. Email doesn't count. So please don't think if you just email some donors that you stayed in touch with them. I want to encourage you to connect with them personally, on the phone, and with handwritten notes. Number 4, think about how you can serve your donors. Rather than having them serve you or always looking to them to help you, call them and say, what do you need? How can I be helpful? It may be that you have an elderly donor who needs you to run by the store. This is a wonderful time in the life of your nonprofit and in our communities to help other people. So genuinely ask the question, how can we help you? Number 5 is to consider your response to COVID-19 within your organization. How are you serving in the community through this time? And we're encouraging nonprofits to come up with a one-page sheet that describes their impact during COVID-19 with particular impact and dollar amounts associated to what you're doing in your community. So for instance, if you are providing meals for children during this time, then create this sheet that describes how you're pivoting in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of COVID-19, with wonderful pictures, simple text, maybe 250 to 300 words, and then provide giving levels and provide the associated impact. So $100 provides this many meals for children, or $500 provides a meal at a school. It could be that you are providing online resources and your donors may want to support that. It could be that $500 supports educating 100 children for a week. So think creatively about what your organizational response is to COVID-19 and how you can creatively communicate that to donors. It could be that in your nonprofit, things are shut down because you're not able to provide the services you normally provide with your organization, but it's still okay to let donors know that. Take pictures of what is happening in the office or at your facilities when staff come in to handle other tasks. Maybe this is a time when you're getting things done that you wouldn't normally have been able to do. Still communicate those aspects to donors and let them know that you'll be back up and running as soon as possible. Number 6, review your case for support, your primary funding needs for your organization. This is a good time to go into graphic design for your case for support. We suggest an 8-page document that outlines the history of your organization, some testimonies, and then what you're going to be doing over the next 3 to 5 years with an associated budget. So this is a great time to work on that document, to work with your graphic designer to lay that out, and then engage your closest supporters virtually in reviewing that document. For instance, you could do a limited print run of your case for support and send that to, say, 20 donors in the mail with a cover letter and a large manila envelope, and then call those folks and set up Zoom meetings or virtual opportunities to review that draft case for support, to get their comments and involve them in the process. You want to ask them for their advice on what you can be doing over the next 3 to 5 years on the other side of COVID-19. Then this is a wonderful time to be planning for a campaign. Maybe you've always talked about a capital campaign. Maybe it's something that you've wanted to do. We encourage you not just to do a capital campaign, but a comprehensive campaign where you're considering everything that needs to be accomplished, both operationally and with your facilities over the next 3 to 5 years. This is the time to plan. Organizations who use the COVID-19 crisis as a planning period and come out on the other side strong will be ahead of those who draw back and are paralyzed by the crisis. So use this as an opportunity to engage your leadership with your staff and your board to do some planning for the future. And then we encourage you, and this is my 8th point that I'd like to cover, when you're doing planning, to consider how you can have cash reserves, at least 6 months of cash reserves, and an unrestricted endowment to make sure that your nonprofit is never in crisis again. We're going to be talking a little bit in a few minutes about the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program that's being offered by the federal government. Why don't you come up with your own PPP program in cash reserves and an unrestricted endowment? Over time, begin to build those funds, communicate clearly to donors that, look, we don't want to have to rely on our banks or on the government for funding. These are uncertain times. We never know how long it's going to take for that funding to come through, or at what level, or what will be forgivable. And so begin to use this time of planning to develop materials so that on the other side, you're able to do fundraising and have your own PPP program set up at your nonprofit. This is also a great time to restructure your organization. Think about what has been happening under normal conditions at your nonprofit, and what are the items that take the most time? What are the items that end up being time wasters? And begin to use this time to build in efficiencies within your organizations. It may not be that you have to have a weekly staff meeting, or perhaps that weekly staff meeting doesn't need to be an hour and a half or 2 hours. It can be a 15-minute stand-up meeting where everybody checks in. It may not be that you need to have monthly board meetings or even board meetings every other month. There may be other things in your calendars personally and in your organizational calendars that you're not able to monetize, that end up being time suckers and that take you off your game for your impact and for your revenue generation. So this is a wonderful time to have those discussions, to slow down and reorient your priorities in terms of time management, both in your schedule and within your organization. This is also a great time to consider restructuring your board. It may be that you've thought about having a smaller board, and we certainly encourage all nonprofits to have smaller, more agile boards. So rather than having 15 or 20 people serving on your board, where it's very difficult to move any significant initiatives forward, consider moving to a board made up of 6 or 7 leaders in your community who each serve in a specific area for advice and accountability for your organization. That conversation may meet with resistance from your board, but it's a good time to begin the conversation, to begin to feel out your board leadership about how open they are to changing the board structure. It's a good time to research what you can and cannot do within your bylaws. And then it could be that you decide to make some changes to your bylaws during this time so that you come out on the other side of COVID-19 even stronger than ever. Okay, so those are the 10 items I wanted to cover with you today. Number 1, staying positive. Number 2, avoiding fixating on the news cycle. Number 3, stay in touch with your donors. Number 4, learn how you can serve your donors during this time of crisis. Number 5, come up with a specific COVID-19 response sheet with associated impact and giving levels. Number 6, figure out how you can plan cash reserves and an unrestricted endowment to have your own PPP program should this ever happen again. Number 7, use this time to plan for a comprehensive campaign outlining what your organization is going to do over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of growing your impact in your community. Number 8, consider restructuring your organizational priorities, especially as it relates to time management. Number 9, consider restructuring your board. And number 10, review case for support virtually with your primary supporters and use this as a time to engage them, to get their advice and involvement about how you can refine your message and make it even better. Okay, now let's see, do we have any questions about that part of our town hall meeting today before we move on to the CARES Act? So we have one comment that says we need to take some time to evaluate whether or not we should even exist as an organization and take an inside look at our impact in the community. It could be that you have thought about merging with another nonprofit that has a duplication of services. It could be that two or even three smaller organizations could come together on the other side of COVID-19 and be even stronger. Or it could be that for some organizations, your mission and impact in the community is coming to an end. Now is an excellent time to have those collaborative conversations. Oh, good. We had one comment that just came through that said that this nonprofit leader has been picking up the phone and calling donors, and they love it. So that's certainly encouraging news, and we want to continue to stay in touch with our donors and just listen to them, hear what they're going through, what their concerns, what their fears are, and then you can be a positive voice and an encouraging voice in their lives. Sure, Donna. We do have a template for the 8-page document for Case for Support. We have a template for that. If you would just send us your email address, then we're happy to send that on to you. Okay, great. So we have a question about the Ppp Loan Program, and that's what we're going to cover next with the CARES Act. There's been, frankly, a lot of communication about the $349 billion that the federal government has allocated to help small businesses, nonprofits, and churches. And with all of that communication in a very short period of time, there's been a high level of confusion and uncertainty. Almost daily, we hear different messages about the funding that is available through the CARES Act. So there are two primary opportunities. There are the EIDL loans, which are available through the Small Business Administration. So if you go to sba.gov /disaster, you will see a link there to apply for an Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. And that is supposed to provide you with a $10,000 cash advance during this crisis that can be forgiven if it is used for payroll, utilities, rent, or mortgage within your organization. We have applied for those fundings. We have worked with several organizations to help them apply. We have not yet seen anyone who has received funding through the EIDL program, but we believe that funding is still pending and will be coming through. The next opportunity is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loans, that are available through your local bank or lending institution. Now, the government has decided to route all of that funding through banks, and banks have opened up those applications to organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, churches with fewer than 500 employees who have an existing banking relationship. We have been in contact with several banks, TD Bank, BB&T, SunTrust. Those two have just merged to become Truist, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and First Citizens Bank, and a variety of others. And we have heard from those banks that they have been inundated with applications to the PPP program. Some of these banks have had to stop receiving applications. Others, like Wells Fargo, have been able to receive more applications, even though they were initially capped at $10 billion. So this is an evolving process. There is a cover application. It's a 2-page application for the Paycheck Protection Program that can be found on the SBA website. Many banks also have this form available on their website. That is the initial 2 pages that you fill out. Then each lending institution has its own criteria for what forms they want you to upload for your application process. We have seen most organizations having to upload a payroll report for the last year, this would be all payroll that happened before February 15th, 2020 for the previous 12 months. Some organizations have uploaded pay stubs. Other organizations have uploaded proof of their address, like a utility bill or other proof that they exist. You do have to be obviously a United States formed organization, so that criteria is in there. And then they want to know how you're going to use this loan. They're allowing you to calculate the loan based on 2.5, multiplying your monthly payroll times 2.5. So as a simple example, if your monthly payroll is $10,000, then they're allowing you to apply for $25,000 in as a forgivable loan. The terms of the loan, as we understand them, are that the loan is given at 1% interest, and after about 60 days, you can request for that loan to be forgiven as long as you can demonstrate that the monies were spent on payroll, rent, utilities, and mortgage. So there's a question that just came through about independent contractors. So if you have vendors or contractors that you send a 1099 at the end of the year, they cannot be included in your payroll. So they would have to go on their own and apply for the PPP loans as a sole proprietor or as an independent contractor. There's a separate category for them. I believe some people have started to process those loans, but there's another portal that is supposed to open up tomorrow, April 10th, on Friday, for particularly for independent contractors. So we just received a question. Do we know of any nonprofit that has successfully received funds yet? No. We have been in touch with organizations through our network, and we have heard of nonprofits, churches who have submitted their applications for the PPP program, but we have not yet heard of anyone receiving funding yet. It's natural to assume that when the government is trying to disseminate $349 billion, that it's going to take a while. However, at the same time, the Secretary of the Treasury also promised that this money would be made available immediately. So we are waiting, and we would love to hear from you when you receive funding. We would love to know what notice you received and that funds hit your bank account. We would love to hear from you so that we can continue to track this crucial issue. So we just got a question from Mark asking whether nonprofits are truly eligible for this funding. Yes, they are. There is an updated single application cover form that I referred to earlier called the Paycheck Protection Program application form, and there's a box that you can check for nonprofits. Nonprofits and churches are eligible for this funding in the same way that small businesses are. Now, there is a part of the form that asks you to list the owners of the company. Now, for a small business, they would list the owners that have a stake in the company at a certain percentage. That is not the case for a nonprofit. So you need to talk to your lender to get guidance about how they want you to fill out that part of the form. We would recommend one of two approaches. Either you leave it blank and state that you're a nonprofit and don't have owners per se, but we have also talked to lenders who have asked nonprofits to list their board members in that part of the form. Oh, okay, good. So we just had a comment from Rosalinda, who said that she spoke to SBA today and heard that it would take up to 3 weeks to have any funding available to her nonprofit. So this is still an evolving process, friends. We as you continue to hear mixed messages about how the funding is going to be made available and when the funding is going to be made available. But we encourage you to continue to be in touch with your banks. Don't be shy about calling, about asking questions, and continue to get the information that you need so that you can process your application as quickly as possible. Yes. So, Joe, thanks for that comment. Just to remind everyone that the EIDL loans, the Economic Injury Disaster loans, are through the SBA.gov site specifically, but the PPP loans, Paycheck Protection Program, are through your local bank. Um, Very consistently, we've heard that banks do want you to have an existing relationship with them before they will process your application. Oh, good. Just people in North Pennsylvania, they help us. So that's so good to hear. And we have heard that smaller banks, because they're naturally more agile, have been more helpful and more in touch with organizations through this time. If you have a nonprofit that pays all employees on a 1099 basis, if there is no payroll, then that nonprofit would not be eligible for the PPP program. Each individual who is a 1099 contractor would have to apply individually for a loan through the PPP program, and that portal opens tomorrow. Yes, we just got a comment from Nancy. It's very uncomfortable that there is zero consistency across the banks, and we share that discomfort with you. We have been on the phone every day with banks, with nonprofits, with small businesses, trying to learn what they have been hearing. We have talked to congressmen through this process. We've been told that while the policy is in place, there are significant logistical issues in terms of getting this money out. We agree with you. It is uncomfortable. We still believe that this will all get worked out. Congress is already talking about allocating more money for this program. But I think it is likely for most organizations that this process is going to take longer than we originally thought. Yes, you can. We just got a question about whether you can apply for both EIDL and PPP, and the answer is yes. Now, on the PPP application, it will ask, have you already received funding through the EIDL as of April 3rd? And so if you have not received any funding, even if you've made an application, then the answer to that question is no. So, yes, you can apply for both programs. So, So Ginger, yeah, thanks for your question. What's the cap on the EIDL? We don't know that there is a cap. What the website says and what the promise was is that they would provide an emergency $10,000 forgivable loan up front that was supposed to hit accounts within 72 hours. That portal became available last Monday. So almost 9 business days ago, and we have not yet heard from anyone who has received EIDL funding as of yet. So we just got a question. If you're a 501c7, can you apply EIDL and PPP? And we're hearing mixed messages about that. We've heard some say yes and some say no. I would say it doesn't hurt you to apply. They're certainly going to let you know if there's a problem. It doesn't take that long to fill out the application. So we would encourage you to go ahead and apply and see what happens with your lender. So if your bank does not participate in the SBA program, if they are not an SBA approved lender, you can go to another bank, but it is going to be challenging if you don't have an existing relationship with that bank. We have heard of a website called BoeFly. I believe that's BOEFLY .com. Could be BOEFLY.com. And they are connecting organizations with different lenders. So that would be something that you should look into and perhaps try. Oh, Kabbage.com is also processing PPP loans. Kabbage with a K. KABBAGE.com. So again, if you have employees with your nonprofit that are 1099 employees, in other words, they're independent contractors, they're not on your payroll, you may be paying them monthly, you may have them on retainer or on contract, but at the end of the year, you're sending them a 1099 that they then are responsible for filing their taxes. They are not eligible. You cannot put those people on your PPP application as part of your payroll because they are independent contractors. They have to apply on their own, and that portal opens tomorrow. Yeah, Rosalinda just commented that independent contractors are those for whom you're not paying payroll taxes on, and that's why you're not eligible to include them. So we just received a question. What's the number one thing that's going to get an organization through this time, recognizing that this is all going to end and we will get back to something close to normal? I think the number one thing you can do above anything else right now is stay in touch with your donors, with your supporters, with your volunteers. All the studies that came out of the 2008 recession were that nonprofits who flourished on the other side of that flourished because they had strong leaders who continued to stay in touch with their donors even through the recession. So you may have donors and supporters who you call and say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I just can't support you right now. You may have others that say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I absolutely want to support you right now. So don't assume before you pick up the phone, don't project any of your fears or concerns onto that donor. Just call them, check in with them, let them know you care about them, and see what they're going through. Ask open-ended questions and listen and stay connected with them so that on the other side of this, when you need to go back for ongoing annual fund or for a campaign, they will not be surprised to hear from you. Right. We just had a comment about free market principles and how the corporate sector plans for downturn in terms of having cash reserves and an emergency fund. And often we find nonprofits have not been able to do this because most nonprofits are spending 95 to 99% of their time on program service delivery. We know that you're working hard today to pay for yesterday's bills. And we are saying now is the time more than ever for nonprofits to say, we have got to take care of our budget and establish an unrestricted endowment and begin to ask donors without apology to contribute boldly and largely to your mission so that you can build up your cash reserves and so that you never have to go through a crisis like this again. So one of the things that we work with nonprofits to establish is a capacity building plan. And you may remember that in the early 2000s, it was popular for foundations to give out capacity building grants. We did a study of 485 organizations who had received capacity building grants, and only 15% of those organizations coming out of the Great Recession were able to use those funds and actually build their capacity to grow their impact and their revenue. So we studied those 15% and we learned some common things. There were organizations who had strong executive directors or CEOs. There were organizations who were deeply involved in fundraising, and there were organizations who had a solid plan and stuck to the plan. If you have a plan in place already, you may need to pivot for the moment for COVID-19, but we are encouraging you to stay the course, to stay positive about your long-range plan, because we will come out on the other side of this and we will be stronger as a result. Yeah, thanks, Joe, for reminding us that 1099 contractors cannot be claimed as W-2 employees. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. You may want to stay in touch with several websites that are helpful. There's Inside Charity, is a news outlet that you will find up-to-date information there. You can certainly tune in to NANOE.org and our Facebook page. We'll continue to provide resources and information. And then on the other side of this, if you want to go into long-range planning for your organization to come up with a 3 to 5 year plan for growing your impact and your revenue, we would encourage you to visit nonprofitconferences.org. That's one word, nonprofitconferences.org. And you can see there a schedule of upcoming events. So if you want to learn, we just had a comment about NANOE, and to learn more about the National Association of Nonprofit Organizations and Executives, you can go to nanoe.org. You can join NANOE there. We also have certifications that we offer. There are 3 certifications: the Certified Development Executive, the Certified Nonprofit Executive, and the Certified Nonprofit Consultant certification. This is a great time to, at a low cost, about $100, to receive a certification to do some continuing ed. All of these tests are provided online, and the resources are also provided online. So this is a wonderful time to continue your education as you rethink who you are as a nonprofit professional and who your organization is within your community. So that's one of the resources that we provide at NANOE. I serve as the president, and I have the honor of interfacing with nonprofit leaders like all of you every day to help you solve your management and fundraising needs. So please connect with us. We would love to hear about what you're going through now. And, if you want to spend some time on the phone with us, just let us know and we'll try to set that up for you. Yeah, NANOE exists to apply free market principles that we know work in the for-profit sector to apply those in the nonprofit sector. For too long, for decades, we have been told that things have to be different for nonprofits, and in fact, things are not different. We have to apply the same common sense free market principles to our nonprofit organizations so that we can flourish when times are good, and then we can weather storms like this when times are bad. So one example of a free market principle that works in the for-profit sector that we should apply in the nonprofit sector is staying close with those who are your biggest supporters. So you know that in the for-profit sector, businesses have relationships with their customers, and they work very hard to set up a customer experience for their clients. They are trying to do two things. They're trying to acquire new customers, and then they're trying to retain those customers. So if you think about Starbucks, Starbucks creates a consistent product and a consistent environment. When you walk into any Starbucks, you have the trendy music, the soft wood tones, the earth tones. You smell the coffee. You have a smiling barista. They have set up a consistent experience for you across their brand, and they deliver that over and over and over again. If you sign up for their STARS program, it allows you to, through purchasing coffee and other products, to earn free coffee and other products. So Starbucks is one example of an organization that has set up a brand experience for their customers. We're encouraging you to apply that to your nonprofit to establish a brand experience for your nonprofit. What would it look like, for instance, if you had a donor, a supporter, a volunteer who came to tour your facility, and when they pulled up in the parking lot, you had a sign that said, "Welcome back, and Cindy, we're so glad to have you here today." And then when they walked in, you provided a VIP lanyard to them as a VIP guest with their name on it for their tour of your facility. Right there, that's something you can easily for just a few dollars. So we're encouraging you to create a customer experience for your donors. We know that you are focused on program service delivery, but in order to have more money to deliver more impact, you need to spend more time with your donors and set up an experience for them that they will never forget. All right, friends, thank you. We will continue to respond to your communication. We are thankful for each of you. You are our heroes. You are on the front lines. You're working hard every day, and we're thankful for you, and we are here for you. Please keep checking back. We plan more Facebook Live sessions in the weeks and months to come. Take care, be of good cheer, and God bless you all. Goodbye.